Yeah.
Okay, so we were down there for about 3 weeks, and we don't schedule everything nonstop. We've learned right at the beginning that you loosely schedule events and interviews, and then you leave at least half of the time sprinkled throughout for all these cool synchronicities to occur, and this high strangeness. We found early in the game, if you book yourself nonstop from beginning to end, you don't have time for the real stuff that happens. So we do leave it open, and that's when all our really cool things happen, it seems. But you got to come up with some kind of schedule. We do put down a basic schedule. So it was the second last night, and we had a great night with Leone and Kay and various people. And I asked Mark, what are we doing tomorrow night? And he said, well, nothing. We're just going to relax before we head out the next day, flying back home. And I said, well, we're having such a great time. Why don't we do something tomorrow night? I don't want to leave, right? And so we talked to Kay, and we said, we would be into going somewhere tomorrow night if you know of somewhere we could go and people we could be with. And she knew these two guys that had a healing center up in the mountains. And I don't even remember where the mountains were. Do you, Mark? Oh, I can't hear your voice. I can't hear Mark.
I just remember it being like off of a rainforest, Rob.
Okay. So she contacted these guys and asked if they would like us to come as guests. And of course, Kay came, Leone came, and there was 2 or 3 other people that came. And, there was 2 or 3 carloads full that we all went. It was an hour or two away. And we got there right away. Mark was interviewing the guys, and I went off with one of the guys that were talking about experiences they had out in the mountains here, overlooking this big valley that it was kind of like a T valley. You could look down the valley right in front of their place, and you could look left and right down the valley. It seemed like 100 miles in every direction. And they said how they've seen where there was like 2 suns in the sky. They had orange orbs appearing at night, and they wish that they'd been into photography so they could record some of the stuff. And little beknownst to me, but everybody else was talking behind my back about who was going to have an experience that night. And everybody was agreeing that it was going to be me. Only they didn't tell me. They kept it very quiet, but everybody felt that. They felt that it was going to be me. And I had already said, I'm leaving all the equipment at home. I've got all this fancy stuff, but it's like, just leave it at home, leave it back at the place we're staying, and just try to connect. It's our last night. And I myself felt like there was going to be something that was going to happen. So we were all set up in the evening in this healing center. As you come off the highway, you kind of drive down maybe, I don't know, 600 feet down to where their healing center was. And it's basically a converted house, and it's, got a big porch around it, and you have a beautiful view down these valleys. But the place that we were set up for sky watching was maybe about 100 feet short of the house, and it was a little bit higher up as you come in off the highway and you go down. So from there, you were looking down to the roof of the healing center, and you were looking out towards the valleys. And Mark, it was getting late, and the 2 guys had decided that they were going to pack it in. It was threatening rain. It was cloudy. And although generally we don't like sky watching when it's cloudy, we decided that we would continue on. And Mark, you had fallen asleep, and there was Kay and there was Leone and so on, and they were playing with green lasers in another part of the sky. And I really wasn't paying attention to that. I happened to be looking over to the healing center, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was like I was watching a movie. There was this big teardrop shape orb that came down over a period of about, I'm going to say 3 or 4 seconds, and it was shimmering green. And I could see, because it was only like, 67 feet away, whatever. But with, your 2 eyes, you've got stereo. And when something's that close, you can see the perspective and the depth of it. And I estimated it to be about 3 feet across. And it was like, it had depth to it. It was like 3 feet across, 3 feet deep, and it was teardrop shape. And the center of it was a bright shimmering gold color. And it was like, I was just mesmerized by this. And I assumed everybody was watching. I mean, I was quiet and everybody was quiet. I just assumed everybody had their eyes on this thing. And it just came down. It got bright and shimmering, the most beautiful thing I ever saw. And then it just kind of went out right over the healing center. And I turned to the ladies and I says, wow, did you see that? And they looked at me and said, see what? I thought, oh my God, they were busy playing with the lasers, you know, doing, connecting the dots with the stars, right? And drawing circles around satellites and all that kind of stuff. And they missed it. But because I was silent. I was being respectful for what I saw. Like it was just so entrancing, the most beautiful thing that I ever saw. And then Mark, he captured me talking about it, and you can just see my eyes glowing. You can just see the radiance because of what I saw. Now there's more to the story, but the guys, when we talked to them the next day, they said that these colors represented love and forgiveness. And Mark, there was the whole story about that blow up doll, the ET doll that the group had given us, and they had signed their names and, nice farewell wishes on it. And they'd handed us this doll. And I was still sleeping in the morning a little bit. And this was all going on in the morning. They decided what to name this blow up doll. And they came up with the name Mozzie. Okay. From Ozzy, and it morphed into Mozzie. And when I came out and I heard them talking about Mozzie, I said, what are you guys talking about? And I said, well, we've called the doll Mozzie. And I said, Mozzie, that's my mother's nickname. We've called her Mozzie ever since we were little boys. It came from mom and eventually morphed into Mozzie. And when the guys explained to me that my experience was all about love and forgiveness, I says, this is what I feel. When you're saying this doll is Mozzie, I said, this feels like this was my mom, God rest her soul. Because when she passed on, there was unresolved things between us. Okay. And this experience for me was a healing experience. It was like both my mom, God rest her soul, wherever she is, and where I was in the physical plane, it's like both of us are offering love and forgiveness. All is forgiven. And do you know, after that experience, the feelings that I hold in my mom, that I hold about my mom within myself are totally different now. It's kind of like I'm at peace and she's at peace. She knows I'm at peace. I know she's at peace. And it was like a healing experience for me. And Mark, I don't know if you have anything more to add around that, but it was incredible. It was only a 3-second event, but it changed my life right there on the spot.
I mean, that's all I remember is coming to, because I had napped. It was just after 1 in the morning, and I came to, and Rob was just. I came over, and I put the link of the video in the into the chat room as well, because he was just glowing. Like, I'd never seen that. I've known Rob. He's been a best friend for like 12 years for me, and it's like I had never seen him in that state. It was kind of the same state that I saw Dan in, kind of like happy, but in a little bit of shock, a little bit of, and I remember asking him, how do you feel? How did you feel when it happened? And he said straight up, like, pure joy, pure happiness. He akined it to the birth of his children when he said, I've had these incredible experiences in my life. I remember when my first son was born. This is the same level of adulation, and it was a beautiful moment. Beautiful.
Yeah, I have to correct that. This was one notch down from the birth of my children, right?
Oh,
I can't say they're the same.
No, not the same, but it's like a same level of
Yeah,
like,
it
wow,
was. It was so close.
the
It was,
wow.
I guess the what I felt, Mark, was I was almost hypnotized.
Yeah.
I was like mesmerized, and it just felt like I was totally high. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
do drugs, but I can imagine what people feel like. But I just felt that I was high on life. Like I just felt that I was way up here, and it was just a feeling that I still had in the morning.
Yeah.